Now I will tell you about the historical evidence concerning Jesus' resurrection. History does not move on feelings. It moves on evidence. Empires rise and fall. Myths are created and forgotten. Legends grow with time. But there are rare moments in history where something refuses to disappear, not because people want it to stay, but because the evidence keeps forcing the question back into the conversation. The resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth is one of those moments. This is not a story that survived because it was comforting. It survived because it was disruptive. It challenged religious authorities, embarrassed political power, and created a movement that had every reason to collapse yet did not. And if we are going to talk honestly about history, we must start here. Jesus of Nazareth was a real historical figure, and his execution by crucifixion is one of the most well-attested events in ancient history. Roman historians such as Tacitus, writing in the early 2nd century, confirm that Jesus was executed under Pontius Pilate during the reign of Tiberius. Jewish sources, including passages in the Talmud, also acknowledge his death. This is not a Christian claim, it is a historical consensus. The question is not whether Jesus died. The question is what happened next. Crucifixion was not symbolic punishment. It was designed to end hope. The Romans perfected it as a public declaration of power. Victims were beaten, nailed, suffocated, and left to die slowly, not only to kill the body, but to erase the person's meaning. If Jesus had remained in the grave, his story would have ended like thousands of others. Messianic movements were not rare in 1st century Judea. What was rare is that after the execution of their leader, his followers did not scatter permanently. They did not replace him. They did not revise his message. They did not spiritualize his failure. Instead, they proclaimed something far more dangerous: that the crucified man was alive again. And they did this in the one place where the claim could be immediately disproven: Jerusalem. One of the earliest claims in Christian history is that the tomb of Jesus was found empty. This claim appears extremely early, within years, not generations. The creeds preserved in Paul's letters date back to the earliest Christian communities, some within 5 years of the crucifixion. Critically, the empty tomb was discovered by women. In the ancient world, women were not considered reliable legal witnesses. If this story were fabricated, women would not have been placed at the center of it. This detail matters because it works against invention. It reflects memory, not strategy. Opponents of the early Christians did not deny the empty tomb. Instead, they offered alternative explanations: that the disciples stole the body. That explanation itself admits the tomb was empty. History forces us to deal with this fact. Something happened to the body of Jesus. Before the crucifixion, the disciples were fearful, confused, and hiding. Peter denied knowing Jesus. The others fled. After the crucifixion, something changed, dramatically. These same men began publicly proclaiming the resurrection, fully aware that this message would cost them social standing, safety, and eventually their lives. People may die for a belief they think is true. They do not willingly die for something they know is false. This is not blind faith. This is behavioral evidence. The resurrection claim did not make their lives easier. It made them targets. The resurrection accounts are not a single source repeated. They come from multiple independent traditions. Paul reports appearances to individuals and groups, including more than 500 people at once. many of whom he states were still alive at the time of writing. The Gospels record different details, perspectives, and sequences, a sign of independent memory, not coordinated fiction. Fabricated stories smooth contradictions. Real testimony preserves them. Two figures stand out. James, the brother of Jesus, was not a follower during Jesus' ministry. After the crucifixion, he became the leader of the Jerusalem church and was later executed for his faith. Paul was an enemy of the movement. He actively persecuted Christians. Something occurred that reversed both men completely. Paul himself explains it bluntly. He believed he encountered the risen Jesus. Hallucination theories fail here. Hallucinations do not convert enemies into lifelong witnesses willing to suffer. Over centuries, alternatives have been proposed. The disciples stole the body, but fearful fishermen do not outmaneuver Roman guards, fabricate a resurrection, and then die for it. Jesus did not really die, but Roman executioners were experts, and a half-dead man cannot inspire worship as the Lord of life. The resurrection was a myth that developed over time, but the timeline is too short and the witnesses too close to the events. Every alternative explanation collapses under scrutiny. Critical scholars, including those who are not Christians, acknowledge several core facts. Jesus was crucified. His tomb was reported empty. His followers genuinely believed they encountered him alive. This belief transformed them and reshaped history. The resurrection is not proven the way a math equation is proven. History does not work that way. But the resurrection stands as the best explanation for the totality of the evidence. This is not about winning arguments. The resurrection challenges something deeper, the assumption that death has the final word. Christianity did not spread because it was safe. It spread because it was convincing. The resurrection was not preached as a metaphor. It was preached as an event. And events leave traces. History cannot force belief, but it can remove excuses. The question is no longer whether the resurrection claim exists. The question is whether we are willing to follow the evidence where it leads. Because if the resurrection happened, then Christianity is not merely a moral philosophy, a cultural tradition, or a psychological comfort. It is a claim about reality itself. And reality, once encountered, cannot be ignored.